Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're gonna learn about tab navigation and we're gonna build a fully customizable tab navigation using Expo Router. But first we'll need to install Expo Router application. So first you need to go to expo.dev/router/installation. There you will find this page and this is the command to install the latest Expo Router application. So just paste it into the terminal and for the name, let's use Expo Custom Tabs and hit enter. Now this is going to download all the template files for us. So let's just give it some seconds and it's done. Now we can close it and I've already opened the project into VS Code. So let me just make it full screen here. And first we need to run our project using npm run iOS. This is going to build our application and run on our iOS simulator. So let's wait for it. And it's running, so let's make it full screen and adjust it into the same window like this, and it's building. Okay, so the application is running. Let me just minimize this, and this is the latest template from Expo Router. We are using the latest version of Expo Router. So if I go to package.json, here you can see we're using 51 SDK, which is the latest. So if you see the code, we have the app folder where all the files will live, and we have explore and the index as the default tabs. But we're gonna get rid of all of these files because I'm going to start from the scratch and I want to show you how you can build a tab navigation. So let me just delete all of this. And it's asking to create an index file into the app folder, which we will do in a second. Then we have the components folder here, and we have all of these components which we don't really need. So let's just mark all of them and delete them as well. Then we have the constants. We also have the hooks folder, so we don't really need them. So let's delete them as well. And let's create our first component into our app folder. Let's name it index. If you want to learn more about Expo Router or the file-based routing, then I have another detailed video on Expo Router, which I'll leave the link of into the video description. And we have our first component and it's stuck on refreshing for some reason. Let's just refresh the app again. I think we have some issues from Expo, so let's just stop the server and start the application again. Let's close this one as well. And let's start the application using npm run iOS. Okay, it's gone now. Now we have our first component and we want to add tab navigation. So if you go to expo.dev and on the sidebar, you will see navigation patterns. There we have stack navigation, tab, and raw navigations, even the nested navigations. But we are interested in tab navigation. So let's click on this. And this is the basic layout that you can follow to have a tab navigation. Which was already implemented, but we will design it from scratch. So here is a sample code for tab navigation. This here says the tabs layout wraps the bottom tab navigator, which is true because Expo Router basically uses the React navigation under the hood, and we're gonna use that in a second. So first we need to create a layout file inside our app folder, and here we're gonna define what kind of navigation we want to use. So here I'm going to return tabs from Expo Router, and as soon as I save it, you will see we already have our tabs here, but we only see one tab, which is the index, which we created earlier. So now we need to have a few of the tabs here. So let's create the tab create, and let's create a functional component inside this and make the name as capital create. Let's create another tab profile and create a functional component, rename the name, let's save it, and one last tab which will be explore.jsx, rename explore, let's save this. And with this we have 4 tabs, and on each tab we see an empty page. I want to add another component just to fill the empty page, so I'm going to call it color list. And here I'll just copy and paste the component which I've created already. Let's paste it here. So this component basically receives a color and shows three bars using different opacities. You don't have to do this because this doesn't have to do anything with the tab navigation. I'm just doing this because the empty screens were looking pretty boring. So that's why I want to have these as the content. So here you can see we are seeing these tabs. Let's copy this and quickly move this to all the components and change the colors. Let's save this and go to explore, import the color list. Think of this as the content of your application, but remember it doesn't have to do anything with our tab navigation. So let's go to all the tabs, and here you can see the different colored sections. So these are the content, and now we're gonna work on designing our tab navigation. But first we're gonna capitalize the names of each tab. So for that we need to go to layout, and here we need to define each tab. So let's use tabs.screen, and here first we need to provide a name of the tab, which is index, and here we need to provide options where we can give the title as home. And now if we close it and save it, you can see we have changed the title to home. So if I make it bigger, now hopefully you should be able to see it. So let's just copy this 3 more times for all the tabs to make all the titles capital. So for this one, it will be explore like this, and let's save this. Index. Okay, we are getting this error because we are using index multiple times. So let's change this to create, and this to capital create, and this one to profile, and profile with capital P. Let's save this, and now we have capitalized all the tab names. Now we're gonna work on designing our tab navigation, and there are two ways basically we can do that. First is to use the options and styling the title and the tab bar item, and you can find all these options here in the tabs documentation to use these options and design each title and the item. But we're gonna use the different way because we want more control over customizing our tab navigation. And if you see the React navigation documentation, here we have a property tab bar. This is a property which basically replaces the whole tab navigation, and we want that because this way we can do any customization we want. So first we need to create this tab bar component. So here we need to specify a property tab bar, which will give us some properties that we need to pass to this custom component. Let's call it tab bar, and here we need to spread all these props. And now let's create this custom component into the components and create a functional component inside this. Let's save this and import this here. Now you will see as soon as I save this file, our our tab bar navigation is replaced with this custom component, and we can go inside this and design our tab bar however we want. But we will need to use all the tabs here, and we can use the state property for that. But I'm going to use this snippet that is provided into the documentation. So let's copy all of this and paste it here, and we'll modify this to however we want. So first the state is missing, so here we can provide the state because these are coming from the props that we passed from previous component. So let's just copy them from here, paste it here. Touchable opacity doesn't exist, so here we are using touchable opacity for the tab bar buttons. So let's import it from React Native. Let's save this. Each child in the list should have a unique key. Yes, we will do that in a second. But here you can see we already have a custom tab navigation because we use this snippet. So what's happening is we are using these props from previous component, and we are looping through all of the routes to show each button, and these routes are coming from our app folder. So then we are getting the label for each item, and we will check if it's focused or not to display a different color. Then when user presses on this button, we will emit this tab press event to navigate to that screen. And if it's not focused, then we will move to that screen. Here is a function of long press event, but we are not using that. Then finally, using all of these properties, we are defining a button and displaying a label inside this. But you will notice that we are seeing some extra tabs that we did not define, but they're still here. And these are coming from Expo. So if I console log these tabs, you will see let's console log the route name using route.name, and here you will see the sitemap and not found. Sitemap is basically the map of all the routes in our stack. So if I go to sitemap, here you will see all our routes, and not found page basically shows when user goes to a page that doesn't exist. So these are coming from Expo, but we're gonna make a check to not display these routes. So let's create an if statement here, and we're gonna put these routes in an array, sitemap and not found page. And if this includes the route name, then we're gonna return null so that these don't display in our tab navigation. So let's save this, and these routes are gone. Now we see our original tabs. So now we're gonna start designing our tab bar because it still doesn't look very good. So let's give the container style from our style sheet as styles.tabbar. We haven't created our style sheet, so let's use styles using style sheet from React Native and create a tab bar object and use this as the container for this tab bar. And if I save this, you won't see our tab navigation, but we need to make it absolute so that we can place it however we want. So let's use position as absolute, and we use the property bottom as 25. So here we can see our tab navigation, which doesn't look very good, but we will design it to make it beautiful. So let's use flex direction as row, justify content as space between, and align items as center. And let's use background as white. And now it's in horizontal shape, which is how a tab bar navigation should look like. Now let's add a horizontal spacing and a bit of a padding. So margin horizontal of 20 and a padding vertical of 15. And let's save this. The items are still not in the center, and for that we need to add the style for the touchable opacity that we used here. So first let's give this a key because each child should have a unique key. Let's use the route name, and the style should be the styles.tabbar item like this. We already had the styles, so let's just remove this and add this tab bar item here. Let's give this flex 1 and justify content center, align item center as well, and let's save this. Now all of the items are into the center of their container. Now let's add more styling and give this a border radius of 25 and border curve as continuous like this. Now it's rounded. So now let's add a shadow behind this container. So let's use shadow color as black and shadow offset of width 0 and height of 10. Then shadow radius of 10 as well. And finally, the shadow opacity of 0.1. Let's save this. Now we have a very subtle background shadow for this container. Now we're gonna change the colors when the tab bar is active or not. Currently we see this purple color when the tab bar is active. This came from the snippet that we copied previously, and if I change this to red, now the active color will be red, and if I go to another tab, active color will show red. Now we're gonna use our custom colors, so let's define these colors here. We will use primary color when the tab bar is active, and when it's not active we will use the gray color. Let me just copy and paste these colors here. Primary color will be this, gray will be this, and let's use these instead of these red and the gray values. like this. And if I save this, now we have this blue color which shows as a primary color when the item is selected. Currently, we're only using the label of the route, but I want to show the icon as well. And for that, I'm going to use Expo vector icons. These are the icons, and these are by default included into the latest Expo router template. So here you can see they're already installed. And what I'm going to do is create an object with all the routes and the icons for all of these routes. So let's create icons object here and define each route, and this will be a function which will receive some props, and using these props we're gonna define an icon here. So let's see how an icon can be used. So let's search for home. Let's say I want to use the home from ant design. So let's click on this, and here we can just import ant design and give this a name, size, and the color for the icon, and this will be displayed in our application. So let's use ant design. This will be imported from Expo vector icons. Name will be home, size will be 26, and by default the color will be the gray color that we use for inactive tab bar items. But we can pass the props from previous component to change the color based on if it's active or not. So I'll just spread all the props here, and we're gonna use this syntax for all of the icons. So let's just copy this multiple times. This will be explore, then create, and finally profile. We're going to use different icons for all of these routes. So for the create route, we will use circle plus circle icon from ant design, and the name is plus circle O. And for the profile, we will use an icon called user. But for the explore, we will use a different library, and the library is called feather. We just import it from Expo router, and the icon name is compass, like this. I save this, and now we can use these icons where we are displaying the label. So let's move to our label section, and here we can use the route name as the key for the icon, and this will be a function so where we can pass the color based on if it's active or not. So let's pass the property color, and if it's focused then we will use the primary color, otherwise we will use the gray color. So everything looks good, so let's save it. And now we can see our icons for all the routes. I think the label is a bit bigger, so let me just format this and we will reduce the font size. Let's move this to next line, and let's use the font size as 11 for the label. And we need to add a gap between the label and the icon, so let's add it to our tab bar item here. Let's use the gap of 4 pixels, and let's save this. Okay, it looks good. And with this we have created a very beautiful tab bar navigation with icons. And the good thing about this one is that it's fully customizable. Means let's say I want to move this to top, so I will add a top property of 60, and now this will move the tab bar to top and it's fully working. And if I want to move this to right side, I can do that as well. Let's say I want to have a vertical tab bar on the right. We need to change the flex direction to column, so let's just comment this, and this will show on the right side. But obviously you can add more styles and make it look better, but the point is it's fully customizable and you can place it however you want, wherever you want, and you can customize the style of the icons and the label. If you click on any item, it moves to that screen, and you can also implement the long press feature as well. You can go to React Navigation's documentation to learn more about this. And let's say I want to hide the labels and I want to have a tab or navigation with just icons, so I will just hide this label, and now I have only the icons, and if I click on any it works as well. But I like to have the labels, so let me just uncomment this. So with this, our tab navigation is complete, and you have learned about how you can add custom icons, add custom styles for our tab navigation, and where you can place it according to however your application design is. So if you have learned something from this video, then do like the video and subscribe the channel. Also share this video with your React Native buddies, and you can find the source code link into the video description. So see you in the next video.